What is scarier than death? That's right, becoming robots. Let's take a Spec Evo look at the Cybermen. Hello everyone! Doctor Who's Cybermen are a type of mechanized, converted organisms that have turned themselves into beings of pure logic. And as beings of pure logic tend to do, go around terrorizing us poor organics. And given the whole situation around it, we're going to be playing not just with Spec Evo, but Spec Tech, world building, the whole package. So strap up and get ready to see these guys. Please consider liking and subscribing if you like this video. And now, without further ado, let's get started. All those people. Death. No. Not death. Something worse. It was supposed to be a routine mission. Mars' South Pole, damn it, we should be home by now. But the remnants of that same tech we found attracted something else. We were still there when we saw something glittering under the sunlight. We thought it could have been one of the two moons, but the metallic surface, the orbit, they were just off. We only got a glimpse of the object before everything went dark. It was certainly industrial, so to speak, like the large factories Gramps used to work at. How much I wish I could speak to him now. I awoke in the lower decks of a ship, one unlike anything I had seen before. Seemed like the same blasted thing that drew us away from the ice cap. There were only two of us left, me and the captain. Tyler, Duncan and Potts were missing with no explanation. I had hardly known the captain before we took off. We had little time for socializing. But now, stuck here, might as well, I suppose. Turns out his name is Pete. We talked about the good things we were doing before all of this. Real shame he was stuck here too, with his wife expecting. But the big bad wolf that is fate stops for no one. After some talk he told me, wow. The ramblings of a madman, sure, but in this mad situation, I best listen to the man who saw it. He said Tyler got taken away by a nightmare in silver, a big window heart, no compassion, nothing but logic and metal. They took him to be upgraded. And then, as if on cue, one of those things showed up, appearing from behind an indentation on the wall. We saw it from afar, and it was more human than what Pete had described. It even spoke the Queen's English quite well, despite its broken, robotic tongue. I dare suppose this was what upgrading means. I began taking off, but Pete just stood there in pure terror. All the whimsy that was present when he was talking about his family sit down like an ice cube in summer. Too shook to resist as they took him, dragged him by the wrist past two others. Two other of those things. One resembling one of those old bodybuilders from the magazines, and one straight out of freaking Skull Island. There weren't Tyler, Duncan, Potts, and now Pete. And then, it will be me. I send this recording to anyone who's listening. Oh God, I can hear them coming now. Please don't let it be like this. Please, not like this. Not like them. Pete sends his love, Jackie. Life has evolved all across our universe in ways that defy imagination, but always adapted to the conditions they evolved in, and sometimes ill-prepared for conditions outside of it. Despite all its achievements, sapient life as we know it was never meant to explore space. Most bodies are too fragile, too short-lived, too unpredictable, but in desperate situations, people must do whatever it takes to survive. This was the case for the planet known as Mondas, a planet which, as has been theorized, was once part of our solar system, its orbit destabilized by the same forces that created the Moon, sent drifting through the void. Mondas had a thick atmosphere similar to that of Titan, allowing it to survive the arduous journey for countless eons, but still retaining the potential for life. Life evolved to survive such terrible conditions. Charcoal skin evolved at the tail end of the planet's geologically active era, absorbing what little energy they could get, and bizarre gills absorbed breathable oxygen from the brine in Mondas's oceans. Varied biochemical conditions even allowed for the evolution of both carbon and silicon-based life. Most forms of visual perception were rendered obsolete by their dark environment, only lit up by the occasional star the planet passed, so most organisms developed radar-based perception, seen as a deep red eye on top of their head, sending radio waves and absorbing all forms of radiation to map the space around them. Communication was achieved through large specialized structures on the side of the head, which pick up and translate messages sent by others, relaying them to the eye to formulate a response. With this quick and effective method, the Mondasians were able to quickly convey information about their environment as well as abstract ideas, leading to the development of sapiency, spiritualism, religion, and society. As the Mondasians advanced and began searching for answers about the world around them, one thing became clear to them. Mondas was dying. A planet dying can take a lot of forms, but in this case, Mondas's core was cooling to the point where volcanism was extinct, and the planet's magnetic field had shut down. The effects of this began by the time Mondasian Civilization rose, and were quite noticeable by the time they developed technologically. They had time to escape their planet and find a new home, but the way they did this would turn out to be a disaster for life throughout the galaxy. The lifespan of Mondasians was already much shorter than those of other sapiens, a few decades at most, and as their magnetic field dwindled and their atmosphere thinned, they became exposed to cosmic radiation. This caused disabilities and mutations even despite their advanced medical care, often causing damage to the perception organs during the very fragile incubation stage of their life cycle, rendering young Mondasians blind and deaf. With their communications technology growing, and being inspired by the silicon-based organisms in their environment, Mondasians began replacing these damaged structures with technological reception systems, and thus the first steps to the future were set. Mondasians went wild for these augmentations, with even healthy individuals choosing to upgrade themselves and connect to an internet-like web that allowed unprecedented amounts of coordination and communication between them, which they hoped would help them find a solution to their predicament. Due to the planet's thinning atmosphere, it became easier to launch material into Mondas's orbit, leading to the construction of vast cylindrical generation ships that were sent out to find a new home or potentially people who would help them. But this, sadly, would turn out to be a dead end. Things became bleaker as the Mondasians used up most of their planet's natural resources, forcing them to huddle around the last geothermal heat vents and deposits of radioactive material, with the last vestiges of society and governance fighting each other for the scraps of energy. Control over the nations fell into the hands of anyone willing to rule, leading to the creation of a trans-Mondasian council that desired only the survival of their species by any means necessary. At this point, most attempts at continued survival had failed to stop the inevitable, and so they took a gamble. While primitive AI had once been a part of Mondasian innovation, it had fallen behind compared with other technological advancements, and now only a few supercomputers remained, sleeping buried beneath the dying soil of Mondas. The Council upgraded these computers by connecting selected Mondasian scientists to them, to form a superintelligence that would work on a solution. A very traumatic experience that caused extreme pain as the scientists involved had to take in all of Mondasian knowledge at once. Machines and men worked in tandem as their combined screams echoed through the Mondasian underground. Soon, parts of the scientists' brains, highly independent due to their surrounding physiology, were removed to make space for greater processing power, removing anything that didn't help in that singular purpose, including anything tied to emotions and identity. The screams stopped, as did pain, and fear, and regret, and worry. That's when the Mondasian superintelligence finally found the answer. Don't save the planet, don't escape it, but adapt to it. Advance the Mondasian species to the limit of cybernetics by any means necessary. It began with those forgotten by society, the homeless, the impoverished, the terminal. Mondasians were vivisected, sterilized, their flesh torn and shredded while generators kept them alive. Only a husk was left, directed towards nothing but survival through cold, unfeeling logic. Then, their global net was hijacked, used to control the masses into converting as well. The Mondasians were gone, and the Cybermen were born. With the last biological Mondasians discarded as mere junk, the Cybermen began to re-engineer their planet to better suit their new form. Hive-like cityscapes grew like tumors as Mondas became a mechanical dystopia. In time, the entire planet became a warship that used vast electromagnetic megastructures to propel Mondas towards nearby star systems, to harvest energy and sapient lifeforms to build their rising empire, all following the will of the Cyber Controller, an evolution of the superintelligence that caused the Mondasian people to convert in the first place. Any surviving lifeforms roaming around secluded valleys and craters would be converted into tragic beasts of burden to fuel the cyber-forming of Mondas. Yet, despite all their strengths, the Cybermen were still far from untouchable. While their mechanical bodies made them immune to most threats they could encounter out of their planet, some forms of radiation, EMPs, or metallic particles, such as gold dust, can easily get past their defenses and damage essential parts, preventing proper electrical signaling and nutrient flow, which is still necessary given the remaining organic components, such as the brain. Ever the innovators, the Cybermen continuously modified themselves to rectify any such problems, even leading to the formation of new subspecies designed for different challenges. And as they expanded towards the outer reaches of space, they eventually realized they were not alone, for other technologically advanced civilizations had undergone their own modifications, which allowed them to walk a similar path. Telos, Marinus, Grox Prime, even as we have reason to believe, places not from this universe. Most concerning, however, is the fact that even Earth has begun producing their own cybernetically altered people through Cybus Industries. Many of these extraterrestrial Cybermen have already met, leading to slight skirmishes followed by coalescence into the cyber empire that quickly obliterates anything in its path. We can only hope Mondasians, and others of their kind, never make their way towards their place of origin, only to find cybers to join and organisms to convert or destroy. And that's it for a speculative biology look into Cybermen. And before anything else, huge thanks to Ancient Bacon for commissioning this one. With this, AB gave me a good rundown of the base for the script, and we worked on it to get some of the stuff just right. One of the funnest parts, of course, was working on the anatomy, running it through to turn the tech features seen in Cybermen into organic counterparts that led to said features, including their sensing organs and, why not, some tomfoolery to make them look less human. Once this was set, we went about how the whole process would have gone, and my absolute lack of knowledge with this whole thing luckily didn't hinder us, thanks to the Baconator's notes. So I hope y'all enjoyed this, and here's a thank you to everyone who wanted to see this episode, or who have asked for something from Doctor Who. And also, thank you to our researchers and research associates who support us through Patreon and YouTube memberships. And once again, to Ancient Bacon for commissioning this one and working on the script with me. Thanks, man! I love reading all of your suggestions in our comments and Discord server. Remember, you too can join in if you want to support our channel, and you get some nice perks too, like seeing all of our creatures and videos ahead of time and helping mold them into shape. Or you can also like, subscribe, or write a comment telling me any type of creature you would like me to give the Spec Evo treatment in the show. Any of those really help the channel a lot. Thank you all for watching, and see you next time on the Speculative Wildlife Research Center.